brother. Okay, GDS.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did we lose Greg?
No, he's on the phone, so I'll pull him back up when he's.
Oh, I got you. Okay, hey, what's up, Matt? I think.
Hey, it's your mic. I can hear you, Ash.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just I don't want to be like too loud, so sometimes this
Oh,
microphone.
you sound perfect, man.
Okay, well I moved the microphone like down, so it's
it sounds really good.
okay. Well, you do too. You look great. Hey, buddy, I squatted 225 last night.
Did you really?
I did. Yeah, I'm gonna go 250 next time.
I haven't done that in a while, man. My trainers got me doing like holding a thing up in the air so I don't fall over as an old guy. Really fun stuff. So we'll wait. We're live right now. We'll just wait for Greg to get on here.
Yeah. So I, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I rejoined the gym after the pandemic, and then my son wanted to start lifting weights. He's 16, so he's starting to get into it, which is kind of cool to see. But it also motivates me, right?
Absolutely, man. Any reason you can get into the gym is better than any reason not to get in the gym. That's for sure. What's up, Greg? How are you?
Good. I often think that, they say, hey, they ask the question, what would you tell your younger self? And I always go back to, get in the gym earlier and don't do drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either do no drugs or do all the drugs, but don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
I would have told my younger self.
Frank Zappa said too much is just enough.
I would have told my younger self to put as much money in Amazon as you possibly can when everybody thinks it's just selling
Remember
books.
when it first came out, Ash, and I sold it short because this is ridiculous, and they blew me out. I've never lost money and saved so much money.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's
crazy.
No doubt. So look at, everybody, welcome to Lunch with Lumberman. Matt Beamer, Hampton Lumber Sales, Greg Riley, Sitka USA. And we're in a really interesting lumber market. This is where we talk to everybody in the supply chain. And if I could show you on our wall, I have 4 new people in here. We're training. We talked supply chain yesterday. And I have so many people from the mill to the end user in the middle of the supply chain. It's insane, right? But I learn a lot every time I go through that and start writing through everything and whys and all that. But so let's talk a little bit about that. It's the beginning of December. I jump on the train yesterday and I pull up my Twitter feed and I see some obscure dude with like 30,000 or 50,000 followers talking about the price of lumber selling off. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Now, after it's sold off, everybody's talking about it selling off. That's generally not the beginning of a sell off. That's the end of one, right? And throughout the day, I did Mike's show yesterday, and just general people, not in our industry, but in publications and so forth, had called me and said, hey, I heard lumber was selling off. So you guys are all laughing in a way, because think about that. It's like we've watched this and talked about it for 6 months and have experienced it. And it's generally when I start, this is just me, when I start reading stories, and Greg used to always say this, it's like when it comes out in the Wall Street Journal, it's generally kind of toward the end of the cycle, whatever that is, not the beginning, right?
Well, and I sent you the Barron's article that was in over the weekend, basically highlighting how, talking about lumber down. What was the title of it? It was kind of an obscure title.
Lumber bad. lumber bad. And then it had like 5 paragraphs of lumber bad. But the same articles were coming out in April and May about record high lumber prices and all that stuff. And you're right, Ashley. Whenever the modern media grabs a hold of something to do with lumber, it's
Yeah,
it's old news to us, right?
Ash, I had sent. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
you did. You did
Okay.
send it. It was. You sent it to me, and
It was right before I sent you the article on the FTX guy.
that guy's a sweetie, man. Lumber prices dive as housing slows. It's like, okay, guy. Whoever wrote that article, it's great. But I mean, if you would have been watching this show 6 months ago, you could have written that article every day for the last 6 months.
I think the biggest surprise, Matt, you and I've talked about this a couple of times, is over that last 6 months, how good the liquidity was all along. I mean, it was really that was a thing that just kept like surprising me. You know, I felt like recently liquidity's started to dry up. So maybe that's a sign that, you know, the bottom is in.
We're not always on the same page when it comes to liquidity because I'm dealing primarily on the western half of the United States and you're dealing primarily on the eastern half of the United States.
That's a good point.
Right.
That's a
So
good point.
I'll make an observation here just based on our last 2 months worth of conversations on this show and also just talking, you know, in our private time. My liquidity over the last 2 months has been lower than yours, Greg.
Okay.
And, you know, my liquidity in Western markets has dropped, not increased. However, in the last 2 weeks, my liquidity is starting to go back up again. So something's changing in the West. And I'm just going to guess here. I mean, it's an educated guess, but my educated guess is that inventories have thinned out so much that any slight increase in takeaway from the yard level is going to be met with a series of inquiries and purchases on trucks, right? And there's a lot more truck inquiry coming across my email and my phone call right now than there has been since August. And this is all coming from the West. So, you know, I think maybe you're ahead of me on the liquidity scale. Now I'm just starting to catch up with you with my Western business. But for sure, I'm noticing a big change here in the last week in terms of my ability to move product. And, you know, the prices are cheap, but we all know that it's not a matter of price. It's
just from a third party observer sitting here watching how you, Matt, and Greg, your customer base, and this is just an observation. I mean, Matt, you've got a lot of, you know, you started out in the industry trading all the big, large independent yards everywhere from New Mexico to Texas. And as they've consolidated, you still have a lot of those accounts. Greg, you lean heavier to multifamily, right? Is that so? I'm saying it's liquidity.
I mean, certainly in the last, you know, it's an ebb and flow depending on the way the markets are. But yeah, I mean, where it's like long-term historical, you know, 60%, you know, pro dealer, trust manufacturer, industrial, you know, 35, 40% multifamily, it's probably flipped in the last 6 months.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, was that a fair assessment? I mean, I didn't mean to.
I mean, I do multifamily and forward selling as well.
I know you do.
That's not 60% of my business. I'm more like 70-30 in favor of the, you know, the pro yard and other distribution and, you know, like truss yards and things like that. People that are actually, still in the process of the distribution chain, not the end of the process, not the builder.
So, Greg gave me some notes yesterday before I did the future show yesterday. I thought it actually really sums up what we were going to talk. All right. So we've sold off quite a bit. And Greg, you talked about the poll you put out when did you put that poll out?
This probably now was 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I'm gonna put another poll out here. Well, I don't know if I'll get it out this week or get it out over the weekend.
Get your pole in the water.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you got to be in to win. You know, I mean, we highlighted the fact we were looking at, hey, what's the market low going to be between now and Q1? And, you know, at that point in time, there's like over 50% thought it was going to be the low 400s. 26 to high 300s, 16% going to 350, 4% low 300s or 200s. I mean, the market feels like the market feels like it has the chance here to stop going down. And if it stops going down and goes up, then that'll clearly be mean that 80% of the people were wrong, which what we've started to find out through our polls is it's pretty clear that you can look at that poll and look at wherever the majority is, and the market's been doing the opposite for the last 2 years that we've been doing polls. So that probably means the next poll will be worthless because everyone will try and go, well, I don't want to be
They'll
wrong.
outsmart it,
So I'm going to
Yeah.
put down what I don't think.
Well, so you brought a couple points up too. All right, let's separate the physical market where people buy and sell, call Matt, Greg, go on our platform and buy lumber every day, from the CME market. But let's talk about them. So the CME sold off, lumber continued to sell off. When a discount, there's great basis out there. That means there's physical items that you can buy that are great discount to the forward market you could sell the futures at or buy the futures. So there's good values in cash. The market sold off, some physical lumber down to basically pre-COVID levels. Or close to that at least? I mean, we've kind of moved through
somewhere
that.
even further than that. Yeah.
It's a good point, Matt. Some even further than that.
Finger joint studs went from 1,700 to 350.
So cash is a big discount. But the market, the CME market has kind of just sat there and flatlined for how many weeks, guys? 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, but the physical
had flatlined until late last week when it broke down and made the low on what was that, Monday or Tuesday?
Okay, so it makes a low on Monday or Tuesday. Physical lumber continued to find liquidity and everything but it was at lesser and lesser numbers. So now we're sitting here. A big mill makes an announcement that they're going to rationalize a small amount of capacity. A couple other ones are coming out.
150 million feet is not a small amount. That's a lot of lumber.
You used to keep that on the ground at one reload.
I think in the context of 150 million feet per month, that would be a big number if you want to start doing it that way. Right?
Well, yeah, absolutely, Matt. Because think about it, a big mill is 500 million board feet.
Not at Hampton, it's 800 million.
No, our biggest mill is Willamina. I think max capacity is about 650 million board feet. That's running 3 shifts, full speed ahead. We're nowhere near that, and haven't been since like 2006 or 2007. So it's
so the high price producing mills. There's still high log price. Russ, if you're listening, we should have got you on. Logs are probably falling down a little bit. I don't know where they're at yet, but we're probably through costs, especially Greg reminded me this morning, Ash, but look at the whole cutting profile. Low grade is so low. It's about as damn low as it's been in a while, right? So it makes sense how there's some capacity rationalization down. If you're in the South or if you're a Canadian mill that owns Southern Yellow Pine mills, they're still lifting the boat up, right? Because they're still cutting it a pretty good, making decent money. So I guess we're going to see probably continued announcements, maybe some more stuff going into the holidays, downtime a little bit longer. At the same time, we're going into normal seasonal strength, right? Where people generally come on and buy their inventory and build it up going into January, right? And are we going to do that this year? So far, it hasn't happened. Is it going to? Yeah, like so Mark Ross basically said the worm is turning. I'd rather buy before the bottom, or you'll pay more once it hits the bottom, right? Greg, how do you buy the bottom?
Buy every day.
Yeah.
Buy every single day.
Or by accident.
Instead of ABC, it's ABB. Always be buying.
But I mean, with that said, talking to guys in the distribution thing, Russ Taylor, BC Interior SPF breakdown prices in the low US 500s for 2 and better. So way off size. Thanks, Russ. Yeah, right on. So you think about it with that whole cutting profile and you got number 3 and all that below. It's interesting. Matt, you got good feedback. So distribution, we need more people to buy because distribution is slowing down and turns are slowing down, right? And inventory is building a little bit of distribution. Is that a fair statement, Matt?
I don't know if there's a big inventory build. There might be.
It's not moving as fast, I should say, right?
Yeah, I think you've had to adjust your inventory max and mins. So like when the pandemic started, everybody was at min inventory, like within So we went home on March 15th or whatever that day was, and by like April 15th, if you had like way high inventory, you're probably getting a phone call from the boss man, like, hey, what are you doing here? Because we all thought at that moment, hey, things are getting really bad. We just had a pandemic. We all got sent home. We were all kind of sitting there going, what do we do now? And next thing you know, lumber spikes, and and the last 2 years is history. But I do think that right now people have adjusted their inventory level maximums down.
Yeah.
So if had a $2 million budget, maybe you've got it at $1.5 million or $1 million, 1.25 million. You're not carrying the full $2 million allotment of inventory that your company might authorize. And I think our customers, if you're not a distributor, if you're selling to end users, I think they've all done the same thing, and maybe even more severely, because they, as a group, the customers of the United States don't feel any downside risk in not carrying a lot of inventory right now. You understand what I'm saying? They've gotten used to carrying low inventories, and they've been shuffling inventory around from different yards to purge it, make it go away. And it hasn't cost them anything, because every time they send out an inquiry for another 10 or 15 trucks, they can buy trucks from some guy that wants to move inventory also. And he's willing to do a deal for them, right? So they've been getting the buddy deals for the last 6 months, and they've been able to continue to run their business just fine. So they're all like, hey, cancel our contracts for 2023. Hey, we don't want to do any more committed stuff. We're just going to buy everything on the cash market again. We're open market. I think that's one of the reasons why Canfor made that announcement that they were going to curtail production in January, because they probably got a bunch of contract business handed back to them as of Jan 1.
That's interesting, Matt. You said that. I was just training the new guys here, and I said, hey, think about walking into a big mill floor. For the last 2 years, let's say you started a job in end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and you're selling in a mill. It's not all and all of a sudden in 2020 and 21, the phones are just ringing in like crazy, right? They're ringing in, and you're just answering it and moving inventory, and contracts are going up. Guess what? All of a sudden now, your sales manager comes in and goes, I have lumber still sitting there. Why haven't you moved it? You need to get on the phone and start. Now you got to make outgoing calls. It's like the real estate market. It went from a seller's market to a buyer's market, right? Now you got to start actually doing the stuff, right?
The other thing that highlights is what I believe is the folly of being heavily contracted. I mean, number one is you give up the pricing power to some amorphous third party that may or may not correctly know the market. But what ends up happening is, in the periods of time when you can get more money for your spot sales, you have less lumber to sell because you've allowed the contracts to take more wood away. And when you have to discount more deeply, you have more lumber to sell. So from a mill return standpoint, if you're saying, hey, our job is to get the best out of the market day in and day out for the mill, contracting is not a good way to do it.
But I'm guessing a lot of big sales managers at mills and all that would prefer contracts because it's a lot easier to move it that way.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
We work really hard out here. So, the things being easy, I don't know what that's like. It's never easy. Matt, it's never easy. It's always hard.
No, even when you're good at it, it's still hard, right? I mean, there's a lot of talented people in our business that have made big mistakes over the last 20 years, and we're all still around talking about it. So, hey, it's just life, right? You can't be right all the time in a commodity. I'm sorry. I don't care how good you are. You just can't.
You can't. Matt Lehman was asking, how did the sloppy pulp and chip market affect the cutting profile? I'm not. I don't know enough about how many integrated mills there are anymore that actually. That's not a question I can answer real well. Maybe somebody else.
That's for Russ. We got
Yeah.
we got to get Russ on here. Hey Ash, we want to talk about Toll Brothers earnings that came out.
Yeah, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about Toll Brothers earnings, and I want to talk about the big announcement that you were going to have this week.
Okay. Well, the first thing is, Toll Brothers actually surprised the market. I was digging into the details. So their new contracts fell 60% from last year, right?
Okay.
And their cancellations hit 20.8%, which is the highest since 2009. But they're saying they have a backlog of 8,100 homes sold. Well, they say like and the deal is they feel comfortable because they've got average non-refundable down payments of $83,000 per home. Seems like a lot.
Say that again, Greg.
So they're saying that they have a backlog of 8,100 homes that are supported by an average non-refundable down payment of $83,000. That's, obviously, if you have non-refundable down payments, that there's a cancellation rate's a lot lower on that, and I think
absolutely.
Yeah, you're committed. You're pot committed, man. You're not folding your cards, even if you got like an ace 2. You're in. You're all in.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of sunk cost to walk away from. Interesting. Matt, I'm going to go back to what you said about the difference between my market, your market over the last few months, and one of the things that I feel is that your markets, to a certain degree, were a little higher beta, particularly the Texas market, which was on fuego. And it seemed to me, and what I saw was the Texas market slowed sooner and more sharply than like some of the Southeast Middle Atlantic markets that I work in. And now they've cleared through, and they're gonna turn back up sooner.
Well, Greg, you're selling into the area where the government is hiring people, and they're always hiring people.
Big man.
Don't get him started.
And just to let you know, Greg threw out the word amorphous on here today, which I'm impressed with. I had to look it up. It's lacking physical form or shape.
Yeah, it's like an amoeba, dude.
I'm going to use that word. I love it.
It was my word for the day.
You're not supposed to.
I was just happy to have a chance to use it correctly. I was just happy to use it correctly.
I thought Amorphous was the guy in the Matrix.
So hang on, is this the time? Hang on, wait a minute. Okay, this is it. I promised a bombshell. We're at the end of the call. So here's what it is. Here's the big thing that's going to change the market in 2023.
Hold on a second. Matt, drum roll.
How much money is in the kitty for duties? Did I just say duty?
5 billion?
8+ billion.
Wow.
And
talk to us about that. What does that actually mean?
I'm just saying that there's a little talk in the back room that there's some people that are talking that maybe it's time to cut the money up. And if you remember, the last 2 times that we had big settlements of these trade disputes, we're at market lows. That's the time where they go, hey, well, why don't we just decide to cut this up? So, what form or shape and what timing that takes place next year is, something that we can start debating. But I'm out there right now saying that's my big surprise for 2023.
So, question: How historically? I have an idea. I think I know.
So you're a lawyer now. You're only asking a question that you know the answer to?
Yes. It's exactly what I'm doing. I'm one hand clapping. So, what historically, how has it been split up in the past? And what's the motivation?
Canadian
What's the
industry got 100% of the money. Canadian industry, what did they get last time? I think it was like 90%, 80 or
Yeah,
90.
they got a big number.
It was 80 or 90% last time.
There's a lot of bees.
So, the all of the the trade disputes effectively over the last 30 years have been a wonderful forced savings plan, which is one of the things that's made the Canadian industry so efficient. And now that why they own 2/3 of the southern U.S. industry.
So, so what is the motivation to settle it besides wanting the money back? And what is the?
Do you need more motivation?
No. There's plenty of motivation. How does that change anything with the price of lumber?
Doubles in the detail, Ash.
Yeah.
It all depends on what kind of deals that get structured in order to settle it. I mean, the one that will create a forced retirement plan for me is if they do some sort of an allocation, a cap on volume, because then we won't have a free market anymore, and it's just not as much fun.
So Russ was saying last time 80% went to Canadians, US $4 billion of the $5 billion.
Right, and it's double that now, probably.
Yeah. How has the exchange affected that? How does it come back relative to the Canadian dollar?
It's a lot of it's a really good return to them.
Yeah. So you got to think about that. You got to use the motivation on the Forex, right? Well, cool. That makes that's interesting. I never thought about that, Greg. I said that you surprised me. That was well played, my friend. And you waited. You didn't tell me all week.
Hey, I got one that's not necessarily as thoughtful as Greg's, but this morning I was looking through. I get a daily update of the open interest in the futures market, right? And so I just was curious because I noticed that it's been going up recently. So I started scrolling back through my notifications until I could find a negative number. The last time I saw that open interest dropped in the futures board, and that day was November 21st, and we were at 2,300 open interest on November 21st. This morning when I looked at it, we were at 2,999 open interest, and every day since November 21st, open interest has been increasing on the board. So that tells you something. And you know what it tells me? It tells me that people aren't afraid of the price of lumber around $400 FOB Prince George, and they're actually investing in it for the future and blah, blah. So I think we've seen the lows of the year for 2022, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, the Canadian railroads and the U.S. railroads screw everything up again here over the next 4 months, to where you could get a bit of a supply squeeze and maybe a more significant rally than people are prepared for. So there's my prediction for the first part of 2023.
One question on open interest: when they're counting the new contract, are they counting one?
This is old. He's still talking old contract.
Well, but are you talking total open interest or old versus new?
All contracts, total open interest.
Because if you're talking all contracts, remember now the new one, when you total it up, is 4x of what the old one is, right?
Right. So yeah, today's open interest would be equivalent to 12,000 open interest in the new contract, right? So we're at 3,000 open interest on a 1 carload contract. That would be 12,000 open interest in 2024.
Yeah. Interesting.
Hey,
well, listen,
Matt just called the bottom in the market, which is it's very much supported by the premium in the futures market. You remember a year ago when we were here, we kept talking about like the futures was $150 over the cash market. It's only like 60 or 70 over right now. But unless I'm missing something, $65 on $500 delivered lumber, it's a pretty good return.
Yeah,
that's better. That's better than buying GameStop.
It's interesting. I was talking. There's a person came in and made a comment in yesterday, and he said he didn't feel that you could make any money on basis unless it was $135 a thousand now, because of the lack of liquidity or potential at the time you try to unwind it. And I could see that when the market was at 1,200, but I think percentage wise, basis still looks pretty good at 65, right? And it's just pure guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, there's, depending on the product and the area and, your sales team's capabilities, slippage is a legitimate, factor. But I'm just saying at $60 or $70 a thousand, by accident, I can screw up and still maybe make 20 or 30 bucks.
The thing I would say about that, Greg, is I've done these long-term programs, basis trades that last for 6 months, right? Where you're maintaining a position for 6 months, and I've seen what you're talking about in terms of slippage, spoilage, loss, things like that. But if I'm offered $65 a thousand on a 1-for-1 trade on 2 before 2 and better versus 2 before 2 and better, and I don't have to do any other math than that, we got the entire industry today willing to do orders for less than $65 a thousand profit. Everybody in the business that we're in right now today would do any amount of cars you want for $65 a thousand profit. That's $7,000 profit per rail car.
Yeah.
There's not a trader in North America that wouldn't take that on their statement tomorrow. Right.
I will say one factor that, is all of a sudden kind of a slap in the face is I looked at my interest charge for last month and I went, wow. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That's been an afterthought for so long, right? I mean, You look at that charge now and you go, whoa, wait a minute. That's real money.
So here's an interesting one. The random lengths, like the cash, the price of so somebody showed me a chart on the utility number 3 trade, right? It got as wide as, below 300 something in 2021. It's back, depending on where you buy, at below 200, right?
Yep.
But we're talking about $200 on $200 lumber.
No, duh. But so then think about that. You got $200 on $200 lumber, but your potential return on that is pretty big, right?
That's 100%.
Yeah, it's 100.
Not on a delivered basis, but
so annualize that.
Because the thing about that is that typically, and Matt, you live this, is that the great basis on low grades typically when the market is really high, because low grade gets to a point and it just can't go any higher.
Right.
The fact that it's this wide with the market this low is potentially an historic opportunity.
Yeah, the most historic opportunity that I ever did was, I think, in 2011. I bought 75 cars of 2 before utility at $88 mil, and it cost $90 freight to get it down to Dallas.
You were probably scared to death.
And you know what? You were selling lumber at $210 and $212 forever.
I remember being very nervous when I called.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, like Greg always said, is sometimes when you buy something and you're not nervous, that's the one that you lose the most money on.
Yeah. Those are wise words that we should all remember.
Yeah. Well, look at everybody. Matt, Greg, thank you so much. Me and the new crew are going to head over to a couple of lumber yards around town. I'm going to show them what lumber looks like and how to convert board footage and pieces to board footage, so we can look at the disparity between the end use level and the other side of the supply chain, what prices are being priced at.
That's awesome.
Nice. All right. Well,
fun.
we're always happy to see pictures of lumber.
Yeah.
And
you're going to be a mentor. You're going to give some mentorship back to the industry.
Exactly what I'm doing, man. Exactly what I'm doing. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll look forward to it next week.
Nice, guys.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.